almost globally, it's only 30% women on stages and 15% of panels have women, which is kind of anecdotally, when you hear that, you go, yeah, actually, now you mention it, there are lots and lots of panels with men and lots of industries, obviously, that are dominated by men. One of the biggest problems is women are not putting themselves forward. I think there are thousands of women that want to speak and they just don't feel, that a lot of them, that they're worthy and that their message is as important as a man's.
So my 14-year-old was only about 6 back then, and I came home and he said, Mum, can girls be the captain of the ship? Yeah, of course they can. What do you mean? Really? Are you sure? And he said, well, there are no books with any pictures of any girls being the captain of a ship.
If you go Googling women speakers in Australia, you got, up until that recently, just a list of LinkedIn profiles and the bureaus, and that was it. And then another keynote speaker last week was telling me that she had put her fee in at 8.5 and the organiser rang her. She was actually the most experienced speaker, but the organiser rang her and said, all the men have put their fees in at 10 grand. I want you to redo your invoice and send it to me for 10. I'm not paying you less.
Welcome to Beyond the Keynote podcast, and I am so excited today to speak to Jules Brooks, who is a serial entrepreneur and PR expert and not 100%, I shouldn't say that, but very focused on female speakers. So I can't wait to unpack some of the insights you have, Jules, and learn everything that you need that you've learned when it comes to females getting out to speak. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, my absolutely pleasure. And I know that you run your own podcast, so it must be weird for you to be on the other side of the podcast interview.
I love it, actually. I love both sides of it. I absolutely love interviewing people and I love being on the receiving end.
Good. Well, I think we're going to have lots of fun together today.
I think we will.
So what I'd love to do to start with is take you right back to the beginning of your life.
Yes.
Maybe not the very, very beginning, but early childhood.
Yeah.
And just understand, I believe that you're in Melbourne, Australia right now, like I am. But also that you're quite worldly and that you've lived in different countries around the world, starting from when you were very young. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your childhood growing up and the experiences you got to have through living in different countries?
Sure. So I was born in Ireland. My parents are both Irish. And my younger brother, I've got 3 brothers, but the next one down was also born in Ireland. And then my dad joined the British Army in order to put himself through medical school.
Oh, wow.
So what happens when you're in the British Army is you move around all the time. So you're rarely anywhere longer than 18 months, and shortest is about 6 months. So I have memories of living in Germany. We lived in Germany for the 4 years before we moved to Australia when I was 11 and a half.
Okay.
I clearly remember living in Cyprus when I was 4, which was where I learned to swim and ride a bike. And my parents loved Cyprus because it was all outdoors and really warm. And I think that's why we ended up in Australia. So
although, why are you in Melbourne?
I have a great story to tell you about when we first arrived in Melbourne. So Dad he qualified as an obstetrician and gynecologist and decided he wanted to get out of the army. And he was always looking around it was going to be South Africa, New Zealand, Canada, or Australia. And an ad came in the British Medical Journal for Australia first. And so we ended up coming here. Prior to that, I had been at boarding school in England with my next brother down, Richard, and the rest of the family lived in Germany. And we used to go back. So I was 8 when I went to boarding school and my brother was 7. And we went overseas and we probably only came back a couple of times a year. So that made us very independent, I think.
I bet. Yes. Wow.
Yeah. So that was until I was about 11. And then Dad, I remember we'd all come back from going camping in Italy because in Germany, you just chuck the kids in the car and drive. Okay. And we'd just come back and there was a message and he said, right, everyone, we're all moving to Australia. And we all went, oh, my God, kangaroos and koala bears. And we were going to a place called Dandenong, which none of us could pronounce at all. And we arrived here and my parents absolutely loved Australia from the moment we walked in the door. The moment we arrived, and we all were told to stop barracking for England in the football and in the cricket. And I remember Dad saying there's this thing called VFL, which it was in those days.
Yes,
and we all chose a different team, which continues to this day. So we'd never had the whole family barracks for something. It was always, all different. And then I went to school in Melbourne, in the outer suburbs in Berwick, in a little tiny school in those days called St Margaret's. And my brothers all went to another private school in Keysborough called Haileybury. And I guess my parents, not knowing anyone in Australia, really took a very big risk to come over and start a new life. Helps if you're a doctor, let's be honest. But,
yes.
but they had to build everything from scratch. And so we have watched them grow their own business, I guess. It wasn't until my son was diagnosed with ADHD and I went, where does that come from? And they said, it's genetic. And I went, really? I don't think anyone in my family's got it. And she was saying the common career for someone with ADHD is entrepreneurship. And I looked around and my three brothers and myself are all entrepreneurs. I went, yeah, maybe that's true then. So that takes us up to sort of arriving in Australia in 1978 and going to school.
Wow.
One eldest sister of three brothers as well. Yeah.
And sorry, what did you say then?
I said I'm the eldest sister of three brothers, and I was a very bossy elder sister. And talking about theatricals, I always wanted to be on the stage. And when we lived in Germany, we had a massive cellar. So a lot of the houses in Germany have the cellar is as big as the house. And it was six rooms underneath the house. And I remember I used to take all the local kids and dress them up in things and write plays, and we'd all perform the plays in the cellar for the parents.
Oh, so cool. And I'm guessing they were drinking wine while they were watching your plays.
I don't know that they were, actually. I don't have that kind of, it was all chilled until we really moved to Australia. You were all in the army and everyone did the right thing.
Yes,
so
okay.
Wasn't quite like that.
Well, that's very cool that you were making up shows in the cellar and putting them on for the town. I definitely have memories of myself doing things like that. My poor parents had to watch so many little plays.
I know. Or I remember we used to take children's books and shine a torch through them through a plastic container and say it was the movies and, make them all buy tickets.
I love that.
But I was always into music and drama. If I had stayed, so my parents pulled me out of my school in year 11 and sent me to a different school because they didn't think I was trying hard enough. But I was constantly on the stage. So Haileybury College in those days did performances about 4 times a year, and it was an all-boys school, and they would get the 5 lead roles and bring them over from my school, which I loved. So I got a new boyfriend out of every performance. And did everything from Gilbert and Sullivan to musicals to theatre, to everything right the way through, and really wanted to be on the stage. And my parents said, no, you can have that as a hobby. You're not having that as a career. I just, even to this day, went, why wasn't I one of those kids that went, no, I'm following my dream? But anyway, that was kind of
tough.
How it was.
It is tough. And so do you remember always wanting and loving being on the stage? Were you quite an extroverted child?
I've got a theory that I've often shared about army brats, which is what you're called when you're brought up in the army. And I think with all that movement, kids go one of two ways. You either become quite introverted and very used to your own space and you don't need the people around you. I wasn't like that. Or you learn how to make friends really, really fast. And that was a skill, I guess, that I learned very early in life. And it stood me in very good stead. I am pretty good at warming people up and just getting to know them very fast.
Yes. Amazing. And so that is a skill as well, and a huge skill that can be taught to women's networks, which I believe you have a lot to do with, which we will touch on a little bit later in our conversation. I want to dive into the stage part a little bit more now, though. So you were one of the 5 that got the female leads, it sounds like, in the Haileybury productions.
Because I could sing. Which, if you ask me now, after years of smoking and drinking and all the things that I've done, I've got a terrible voice. But I used to have a really, really big what's it called, octaves or whatever, but I could go, I sang soprano and I sang alto.
Oh, wow. Yes.
So
you were like almost
range.
Mariah Carey.
Please, God. No disrespect against her, but yeah.
She can do lots of octaves, though.
Yes,
she can do lots of octaves.
I don't think I was ever quite in her range.
No, I don't think many people are. Okay, so what do you remember loving about being on stage?
I'm not only an extrovert, I'm a show off, so I loved being on stage.
Okay.
Any opportunity. And then I wanted to be a teacher. So I think really I liked being the person up the front. And what I've discovered as I've got older is I'm really good at teaching, even though I've never been a teacher. But that's, I think, also probably goes back to those days.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I think you can be one or the other when it comes to performing and theatrics. I was the opposite to you. I was very shy as a child.
I always think that's amazing when I hear a performer saying they were really shy.
Yes.
And I think, God, what you would have had to push through to get to where you got to.
So I surprised her. It was my mum enrolled me in calisthenics when I was, I don't know, 4 years old or something like that, somewhere between 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And I loved going each week and learning the routines and doing the dances, etc. And then when it got to end of year concert, she thought, oh, there is no way Carmen is going to get up on that stage. We're going to have to catch her side stage when she runs off crying. But it turns out I loved it up there. I was waving and smiling and having the time of my life. And I enrolled later, like 8 years old, I was in local theatre.
Right.
And so for me, I was someone different up there. I was playing the character that I was given, and therefore it's like it gave me permission to be the big person up on the stage, or, you know, especially in pantomime. So whatever the character required, of course. And I remember we used to travel to school, so my teachers would say to my parents, oh my goodness, because we'd go to my own school sometimes, I cannot believe that is Carmen up on stage. She's the quiet child up the back of the classroom just doing her work, and she's on
peep out of her.
stage with this big voice. And so for me, because I have coached a lot of speakers along the way, I know you've coached and mentored speakers too, I don't think it matters if you're introverted or extroverted. You can get up on the stage.
Absolutely.
And
it's a skill.
It is a skill.
It's a skill, and that needs to be practiced. I was just this weekend with a whole lot of women at a retreat saying to them, even if you're bad at it, you will become really good if you just keep practicing it. And don't push yourself in front of 300 people at the beginning. Just start with the 10s and 15s and 20s and work your way up.
Yes, which is also interesting because for me, because I was shy, so if I was in a small room with people I know, that would be more mortifying for me than standing up on stage in front of thousands of people with bright lights shining in my eyes and me not really seeing anybody. So it's very interesting, the psychology behind all of that.
Yes,
I think.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, both yourself, who's an extrovert who loved being up there, and me, who I loved being up there, surprisingly, even though I didn't want to be the center of attention in my everyday life.
Yeah.
Both have ended up speaking and also coaching people in speaking. And I know that you do a lot from a PR point of view too, which I'd love you to tell us about soon too. So what do you think, you are obviously always comfortable speaking. How do you help people that aren't comfortable speaking? What are some of the tips that you have to help them overcome that? Because there's so many people that have important messages.
Yes.
And if we want to hone in on women for a minute, because I mentioned to you before this interview that I've interviewed a lot of men so far, and I have found that in my career as well as a coach, I have definitely coached many more men, because it's been people that are at the top of their career in C-suite and MDs and owners and founders, and there are still many more men in those positions than women.
Yep, sadly.
And men are more willing to put themselves out there, I've found in general, than women still. And we need to get over this. So let's dive into that a little bit and tell us how you...
Well, firstly, let's talk about the stats, because I don't know if everybody is aware, and there's very few, so that's why I am doing a survey at the moment. But almost globally, it's only 30% women on stages. And 15% of panels have women, which is kind of anecdotally, when you hear that, you go, yeah, actually, now you mention it, there are lots and lots of panels with men and lots of industries, obviously, that are dominated by men. And then on top of that, add that extra layer of if you're working with leaders and we're talking about leaders in business, then again, the women are a much smaller percentage than the men. But I also think women overthink it. They start thinking about what other people are going to think of them. I don't think for most men that becomes a concern. So I think and I was telling the story the other day of I've got 3 sons, and in primary school in Victoria, they do a leadership thing. This is in the public primary schools. They do some kind of a leadership event once a year at the Arts Centre. And they bring 2,500 children together from schools all over Victoria. And my son got to go. And I remember saying to him, how was it? And he said, oh, well, at the beginning, they said, would someone get up and tell a joke? So I just got up on the stage and told a joke. And I went, and I was like, Tom, how many people were there? And he said, I don't know. There were thousands of people there. And I said, were you nervous at all? And he went, no, should I have been?
Yes.
And it was just so funny to think of how much we overthink it. And that when you're little, you just go, it's an opportunity. I might be able to make a whole heap of people laugh. I'm going to do it. So I think one of the biggest problems is women are not putting themselves forward. Now what I think, now that I've been working in this Australian women speaker space the last couple of years, I think there are thousands of women that want to speak. And they just don't feel that, a lot of them, that they're worthy. And that their message is as important as a man's, or their message is, you know, I'll speak to women and go, you have got to tell that story about how you survived cancer and have turned it all around and now built this massive charity where you're changing the world. And they'll go, really?
Yeah.
I don't think
is that
so.
a good thing?
Yeah, I feel like I should just hold back a bit until it's more successful. You know, you hear, it's the same thing with women going for jobs and men will go, I've got, 80% of the skills, so I'm going to go for it. And the women will go, I've only got 98%. I don't think I should apply. It is that mentality that women have. And I absolutely agree with you that we've got to encourage more women onto stages. But one of the things is by upskilling them so that they know what to expect. And I think the other thing, anecdotally, and I'm trying to get to the bottom of it in the stats, and I don't think it's going to come out, is that I have heard that there's a theory that women do inspirational talks and men do educational talks, that there's a kind of a gap there, that men will tell practical kind of talks where they'll tell their story, how they got to where they are and whatever, and that women are talking about how I recovered from cancer and when my son died, why I started this charity or whatever. I actually don't think that's true, but I have heard that anecdotally, and I would encourage women to get out and share their expertise. I mean, that so many women know so much great stuff and they just don't regard it in themselves. They don't see it.
Yes. Well, yeah, that is very interesting. And you're doing more research, I believe, at the moment. So I'd love to hear what the result of that is. I mean, if I think of myself personally, I've definitely been the educational speaker because I speak on speaking. I speak on, how do you overcome your nerves and how do you get up there and captivate people, not just talk.
Which is what we need.
Yes.
And I did. I mean, I've always really spoken about PR, how small business owners can get publicity, how to raise your profile. And then I've done from the beginning of the lockdowns was when I started really focusing on women. And now I've got a keynote about how to become a woman of influence that I use as well. But I still get asked for the PR one. I still get asked for it. And I've stopped running a PR agency 13 years ago and running that business 5 years ago. Right. Interesting.
So it is interesting. Okay, so your new keynote, tell me what the title of that one was again.
How to Become a Woman of Influence, which I
I
have.
love that.
Thank
How to
you.
become a woman of influence. Tell us about that. Tell us.
I do it for men as well, and I say how to become a person of influence. But
Yes, okay,
really,
good.
I realized about 3 years ago that what I've done for myself, I could be doing for other people. And I have managed to raise my profile. And I've done it with a combination of 7 things, which are LinkedIn,
Yes.
speaking, PR, networking, podcasting, online courses, and something else that have I said speaking? I don't know whether
You
I
have, yep.
I
Speaking
did
was
include
number
it.
2.
Okay, and something else, and I can't remember
Okay.
what the other thing is. But what I talk about is using podcasts not for the audience, but for the doors that you can open for your guests. You know, I have
Yes.
interviewed multi-millionaires and wildly successful people from all around the world because
Yes.
I've said, you're amazing and I'd love to share you with my audience. And these are people who, if I went to them and went, you're amazing, could I meet you for a Zoom, probably would say no. But by the time you've done a 1 hour interview with them or a half-hour interview with them, there's a relationship there. And it's much
Yes.
easier to say, wow, you're amazing. I'd love to have a chat with you offline. Plus,
Yes.
they then understand what you do. And so I've got a whole different strategy around podcasting, which is, yes, it's fantastic to build an audience, don't get me wrong, but I don't care if no one listens to it, if it'll open the door and let me interview people that I really admire,
Yes.
that normally you wouldn't be able to get to.
I love that. What a great strategy. Anyone that's listening should take that one down. Little gold
Absolutely.
nugget.
And using that strategy, and I find all of them through LinkedIn, all of them.
Yes.
I have interviewed Oprah Winfrey's chief staff of 11 years. I've interviewed the
Amazing.
only woman in the world who runs an oil company. I've
Ooh.
interviewed the Deputy Prime Minister of England's wife. I
Okay.
have managed to get
Incredible.
to really big names and unusual
Yes.
people by saying, I think you're amazing. Can I interview you and share your story?
Wow. Well, one of my clients who is based in Miami, Florida, who is a man
Yeah.
and a wonderful man, he says to me, your network is your net worth.
Totally.
And yes, you've just demonstrated that 100%. So of all these incredible people, who's the most memorable, or what's a memorable moment you had talking to?
Oh, my goodness. Okay. A couple of the more memorable ones would be Susan Morris is the owner of Belize Natural Energy, which is
Okay.
an oil company. She was told many times that there was no oil in Belize because Shell had been in there, Esso had been in there, all the big companies had been in there, run by men. They'd all dropped
Yes.
drills. Nothing had been found. And she said, no, I absolutely believe it there. She's a geologist. And the
Okay.
first time she sunk a well, she struck not only oil, but it is so pure it doesn't need to be refined.
Oh my
And
goodness.
what I love about her story is that she is taking that money and reinvesting it back into the country to raise the standard of living for everyone
Of
in the country
course.
and the standard of education, which I think is very typical of women and the way that they look at things. The other
So
one,
beautiful.
I've got 2 more. One is Lady Clegg. Her name is Miriam Gonzalez Duartes. And Miriam, so one of my things with podcasts, I ask all the guests the same questions. I don't know whether you do that. So I don't need to do
No.
research.
Okay.
So I don't know very much about them other than what I've read on their LinkedIn profile. So
Yes.
with her, I realized, or I had read that she had started a movement and a website called Inspiring Girls.
Okay.
And she was focused on girls 11 to 16 and role models. And she'd done
Okay.
some research that said girls 11 to 16 couldn't find or couldn't see women in the roles that they wanted to have when they were older. So I interviewed her about this, but I do what you do. So I went, take me back to where you were born. She said, little dusty town in Spain, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
We went right the way through the whole interview. She did mention at one stage that the media had been a bit mean and that her husband was in politics, but I just kind of glossed over it. And I get off and I go and look her up and I was like, oh my God, she was one of the 50 most influential women in the world. She was the Deputy Prime Minister of England's wife. She was the head of the European Trade Commission, or worked on the board of the European Trade Commission. And I hadn't clocked any of it. I just talked to her about role modelling for young girls.
And she would have loved that, I'm sure. She would have absolutely loved that.
Well, as you know as well, I think people love a conversation. And if somebody asks them something they haven't been asked a million times, and for most women and most people in general, I think people talk about their careers. If it's a business podcast, it's about what have you done in your career. But what I find interesting, and you obviously find interesting, is who influenced you? Like, what did your mum or dad do? You know, why did you end up doing what you did? And were you good at school? All those kind of things, because I think it's inspiring to hear that someone who was rubbish at school ended up running a massive company.
Exactly. And it was probably the resilience that came from being rubbish at school that helped them run that massive company.
Exactly.
Before we move on, what you were talking about before, I'll have to look up that research you were talking about, because that's so interesting that you were saying girls between 11 and 16 can't see women in the roles they want to be in. I remember coming from work, this was years and years ago, I was back in my corporate career. I was in corporate for 18 and a half years with the one company, worked my way up the ladder. And so when my children were very young, I've got two boys as well. They're currently, they've just had birthdays. This sound like a bad mother. 11 and 14. They've just both turned 11 and 14. So it was back when my oldest was in prep. So my 14-year-old was only about 6 back then. And I came home, it was 6:30 at night, which was usual to come home. And he'd had a little play date with a girl from school. And he said, "Mum, can girls be the captain of the ship?" So I'd said, "How's the play date gone?" And then he's like, "Mum, can girls be the captain of the ship?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course they can. What do you mean?" And he's like, No, really? Are you sure? Can a girl be a captain of a ship? I'm like, yeah. Why? Why are you asking me this? Like, were you playing ships and were you arguing over who's going to be the captain kind of thing? And he's like, no. But seriously, can girls really be the captain of the ship? And then I sort of started paying attention, because I was still like getting things in.
Why is this such a big deal for them?
I said, yes, they really can. Why don't you think they can? And he said, well, there are no books with any pictures of any girls being the captain of a ship. Yes, and that my brain exploded into 1,000 parts all at once, and I've gone straight into the kitchen where my husband was and said, "Did you hear what just happened in there? Oh my goodness, I've been in leadership since he was a baby and he's asking if girls can be anything."
It's so funny,
but I thought, oh, okay, so this is someone that actually has a role model in the house of a working mum who's in leadership, running teams, national teams. I had people internationally as well at that time. And so my initial reaction was, I can't believe he's asking if a woman can do anything. We can do anything, of course. But he was so innocent. He was only 6 years old, and he wasn't trying to be controversial. He was confused.
Yes.
And I thought,
because we don't see them. We do not,
yes.
And that's why we've got to absolutely encourage these women that are going into male-dominated industries, because otherwise the other girls won't follow if they can't see that it can be done.
Yes,
it's
so
really
true.
Fascinating. Really fascinating. A friend of mine, her sister is a plane captain. I don't even know what that's called, whatever. But she was the first person that flew the Qantas plane direct from Australia to London. Remember when they did that, and they don't have to stop now?
Yes.
And that was a woman. And I thought, how great. There will be a whole lot of girls now going, I might be a pilot, who wouldn't have thought of that before.
Yes, and I've seen a couple of female speakers who are pilots, who were some of the first, and had to do extraordinary things to get an opportunity to drive that plane. So yes, incredible work, and love that you interviewed the Prime Minister or Deputy Prime Minister's wife and didn't even know you were doing it. We sound very similar in that I've definitely had some high-profile clients in the past who have just randomly messaged me saying, hey, believe you help in speaking, can we have a chat? And I've ended up in their office not knowing who they are. I've looked up the company. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's finance or it's this.
Yeah, whatever.
Have a chat. And then you go away. I'm like, I think they might be some kind of
Quite
significant figure. Yeah, Google them. You're like, oh, wow, they're kind of famous.
Yeah.
But I think that's what makes it so beautiful, the relationship you have with each other, because you don't see them that way. You just see them as a person, and that's why you can work with them.
Absolutely.
And have great conversations.
Then if we were to take back and go back to the topic we're talking about, which is speaking, that is why I'm so passionate to get more women on stages, because it's absolutely inspirational for the girls coming up behind them to see what it is they do and to see them on stages.
Yes, important. Absolutely. So let's talk about the business of speaking, because there's another thing that holds women back, and that is being able to actually make money from speaking, or diving maybe from a job into entrepreneurship that is speaking. And there's lots of different ways you can make money with speaking. It's not necessarily the speaker fee that's going to build a really robust
let's be honest about women. One of the strong stats that we knew anyway but have come out is that more than half of them are speaking for free. So what are they getting out of it?
Yes. So do you have any advice, or how have you structured, I know that you have spoken in the past as part of your suite of things that you do. Maybe tell us about yourself first. How have you structured your businesses, and how have you integrated speaking, and what has it gotten for you from a business perspective? Okay.
So firstly, I am a professional speaker in that I, of course, want to be paid every time I speak, but it is not my sole focus for my business. I've been speaking really, I would say, properly, as in I went and got some speaker training in about 2016, I think.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was speaking. I've never had any problem jumping up on a stage. But when I realized that there was actually a science behind it, I guess, was around then. I've never been great at selling from the stage. That is not my forte. What I really want to do normally is demonstrate my expertise by showing people how they can do PR or inspiring people. So I do a lot of talks around how to get a lifetime of free publicity, that kind of thing. But I more recently have started, we've alluded to the fact that I also run a group called She's the Boss. So that is for women over 45 that are running businesses. I'm telling all of them to get up on stages, but I also run about 70 events a year, online and offline. And all the in-person events, I get up and do a half-hour talk about why it's important women need to support each other and alert them to some of the stats that are going on. So what do out of a lot of those talks, I just want to encourage them to become members or to sign up for my courses or for me to do some coaching with them. I haven't got a book, which I should have, but I haven't. But that's one of the obviously great ways you can make money at an event. But I guess my strategies, I'm more about trying to encourage women to get on stages, and then I send them to people like you to go and get the training. So I'm a big fan of, you do need training. Don't think you can wing it. But I don't actually take people through a speaker course. And as part of how to become a woman of influence, I explain a bit. I'll explain to them that they can probably create a couple of keynotes and then reuse that over time with different titles and for different audiences by tweaking it. I tell them that they need to time themselves really, like I tell them all this kind of basic stuff, but in terms of stagecraft, I'm not really doing a lot of that.
Yeah. Okay. So when you are speaking, and so you're trying to encourage women into your community.
Yep.
And then, and so what do you offer within your community?
We offer, I do PR coaching. It's being part of a network of a whole lot of women. I don't at the moment offer many opportunities to get up on stage. We used to do a thing called the learning table where we'd have a woman come once a month and explain things online. And we now have we've morphed that into a thing called the Thrive course, where we've got 14 women doing a 1 hour talk each, and then we've recorded it and turned it into a course. And we've done that on a couple of topics, and we've still got well-being and woo-woo still to come, which will be our course for early next year. But through women speakers, one of the things I am realizing, so I'll give you a tiny bit of background on that, just so that you know.
Yes.
So because I do have a little bit of imposter syndrome around it, being a typical woman, and that is that it's not my main focus. However, as part of how to become a woman of influence, I'm telling women they need to get up on stages and they need to practice. And so it was a combination of teaching that course, and I'm all over LinkedIn all the time. And I saw a post from a big corporate saying, where can we find new talent? We just have the same women being pushed forward to us every time. In the same breath, I saw a woman posting into a little Facebook group going, where can I find speakers for my small business networking event? And I thought, we have got a bit of a problem here. So I thought, what I'll do, and I did it in 5 minutes in November 2023, and I literally created the name Australian Women Speakers, and I created a logo in Canva, and I created a LinkedIn group. And I thought, I'll invite 30 women into it, because what I realized is the only way to find women speakers, and people were valid in that they were saying, I'd like to have more speakers, but I can't find them, is that women are really hard to find as speakers. Right. If you go Googling speakers, women speakers in Australia, you got up until that recently just a list of LinkedIn profiles and the bureaus, and that was it. There's no one place where you could go and find, particularly if your budget, say, is under $7 or $8 grand. So you're not doing a big conference, you're doing a, whatever it is, you've got $5 grand in your pocket. Where do you go and find those people? And so I invited 30 women in, and I would say within 3 months, I had nearly 1,100 in there. And then I did the same, I know. And then I went, hang on. So then I went, well, I know there's a lot of women on Facebook that aren't on LinkedIn. Yes. Let me just see if I can capture then. And there's nearly 1,500 of those. And I went, shit, that's 2,500 women in 6 months. This is clearly a problem. Yes. And so I started a directory at womenspeakers.com.au, which I think in itself, to be honest, I was like, why haven't the bureaus, why has no one snapped up that URL before me? Yes. And I got womenspeakers.com.au as well. So again, I thought this is a sign. And so I thought I'd create a directory and everyone would come. And of course, that is not how you run a business, as you know and I know. Yes. And so now I've just partnered with a couple of people that do some training, and we're really going to start pushing it out. But more than anything, it was because it is really hard to find women speakers. And they genuinely were saying, I couldn't find any. And I was going, that'd be ridiculous. I could name like 1,000 of them. Yes. But I would have to name them. It's all being done on word of mouth. There is nowhere to go and find them easily, which then led me to another realization, which is not just for women, is that there is nowhere to find speakers easily outside of bureaus. Yes. Have you noticed that? Yes. And how do people practice? How do they become skilled? They need, the $1,000 and $1,500 gigs before they're going to be able to make their way up to the 10,000 plus gigs. Yes. And I'm just really conscious of this at the moment. And it's not, I'm not coaching them other than to say you need to do it. And I'm saying it is absolutely one of those elements that will position you and grow your influence. And you will learn a lot from it. But I'm not actually doing what you're doing. So you're the person I will send them to.
Thank you.
But that's the issue, I think, out there. I think there's a lot of women without experience. And in my little snapshot survey that I'm doing so far, at least 50% of them need training and want training, but they don't know where to go. So there's this whole sort of subset underneath what's going on with speakers, particularly women speakers, that I think needs to be addressed. Yes. So interesting. I mean, if I think about, as we've touched on through our conversation, I realised I had a love for acting at a very early age, and I actually went on and formally trained at Monash University. So I did a Bachelor of Performing Arts. Great. And within that course, I ended up staying on and doing my honours year once I got my bachelor's degree.
And for my thesis, I wrote my own theatre show and then produced it and put it on, acted in it, all the things.
Wow, well done. Congratulations.
Thank you, which I loved. I just did it. And back then I remember having to make, and then I had to write a thesis report on all the decisions I made. So why did the lighting do that at that moment? Why was the sound that way? Why was the set design the way it was? You know, why were the characters there? All the things. And I always tell this story that I remember I had multimedia elements throughout my theatre show, which were kind of like ad breaks. Yeah. And it was so long ago that I had 2 video recorders attached to each other to cut the footage together. I have no idea how I did that. But I think in this digital day and age, it's so much easier to create
now you do it on your phone.
Those sorts of things. Why was I telling you that, though? I was telling you that for a reason, because we were talking about women speakers and people not getting out there.
They need training and they need stage
training. Yeah, so that's why I was telling you.
There's a glut of them at this lower end of the scale. And we're never going to get those women to be the keynotes at conferences if they haven't had that experience lower down.
That's right.
And,
yes. Because then that's what I was going to say. My 18 and a half years in business, I still think, even though I actually kind of hid the fact I had a degree in acting because I thought that was the stupidest degree to have in a business role, and I can't tell, the head of marketing that I've got a degree in acting. But I believe it's the skills that I learnt in that performance area of my life that helped me become a leader in business. And then I coached my teams because they had to deliver presentations and speeches at state meetings, and they were often speaking to people more senior than them from a hierarchical point of view. Yeah. And often it was rooms full of men because we were in a very male-dominated industry, and my team often was women. So I did have some men in my team, but compared to the rest of the business, I did have a lot of women. And this learning that skill set, this is where I'm getting to the point, for these women made such a huge difference to their confidence in general. Yes, in business, in meetings.
I mean, it should be, every woman should be put through it.
Yes.
And the other thing that I've discovered from doing PR is that women don't think there's anything special about their story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And I actually used to run a great program or an offer, which I called Fig Jam, which I'm sure you know the acronym for. But the idea was that women, so I would get journalists to write women's stories for them, because they'd look at it and go, wow, who's this amazing woman? What do you mean it's me? And they just literally wouldn't see the wood for the trees. They cannot see their own accomplishments and successes.
Yeah,
they're like, oh, not me, I'm not special, it's all the other people. So it's a really big job to encourage women to put themselves forward and make them understand that they have got plenty to offer.
Yes. And when I think about my clients over the years, I had this incredible client years ago who she was the managing director of APAC for a Singaporean property company. Right. And when she rang me, she said, Carmen, I was in a meeting with 40 people, and when it was my turn to speak, I pretended I had a phone call and ran out because I just couldn't do it.
Oh my God.
And so
that's what stagecraft would have taught her, just to push through.
Yes.
And ignore them all.
And she said, I can never do that again. I'm the managing director. So.
Oh my God, even worse. Right.
Yes. And she's amazing, and we worked together, and she overcame that, and so then she also said yes finally, because she kept on getting asked to speak at industry events and conferences and on panels, and she would just say no. She wouldn't even consider doing it because of her fear. She was a trained engineer. She had an engineering background, and the interesting thing she said to me was that when she was younger and in university, she had no problem getting up on stage. And somewhere along the line, when she had children and went on maternity leave and was away from business for a while, she lost a lot of confidence. And then it never returned, but she got the MD role just through her technical skills and experience and just working.
There's a great woman called Pamela McDonald who talks about that a lot.
Okay.
And she came to my retreat in Bali last year and said, you can't put someone who's great at IT, who's absolutely killing it in business, and then give them a team of 30 people. You are literally
Yes.
setting them up for failure in a lot of instances because they haven't got the people skills, they've got the technical
Yeah.
skills. And we've got to stop. But as you were saying that about that great boss, the MD who and the confidence it made, it's made me think we should just do a call out now to any women who are listening who have
Yes.
had training and have got staff below them, put them all through this program
Yes.
because learning speaking skills is so useful for everything in life, but it'll help them speak up at meetings and it will give them confidence that they currently don't have.
Yes. Yes. So true. I am so grateful. I said I worked in a very masculine industry and it was nothing for me to be in a room full of men often in my business career, which has helped me so much in my own business because I've attracted a lot of men in terms of coaching because of their positions and the way the world is at the moment. And that's been completely comfortable for me because of the experience I had in corporate. And I know that it's so uncomfortable for so many women. A lot of women will say, oh, but how do I speak up when there's so many men in the room? And so that's also
and the answer
very
is you
interesting.
open your mouth and you say words.
Yes.
Because, running out of the room doesn't really help anyone. It doesn't help the guys understand that there's a problem. It doesn't get you an opportunity to speak or even an opportunity to complain later that you weren't allowed to speak.
Yes, so true. And I do have to say that I have worked with so many amazing, incredible men, and that there are a lot of men who also feel really awful and nervous and anxious about speaking. The difference is they're still doing it.
No, the difference is they are given opportunities and the women are not being given the opportunities. That to me is a big part of the difference because the women are too hard to find. And it all just gets too difficult.
Your 1,500 list should help solve a lot of that.
2,500, yes.
2,500, 2,500. It's incredible. So let's move to what is beyond the keynote. I know that speaking's not your sole focus now, but you obviously know a lot of speakers. You've got 2,500 women on a list, and we want to be able to elevate them. So my business has shifted. I still do coach people that are starting out and need to learn the basics, but my focus at the moment is taking people who want to speak, who want to be out on the world stage, and really elevating them to go after those top speaker fees so that you're not getting paid the $1,500. You're getting paid the 10K plus USD, not AUD. And attracting world stages. And I'm doing that through blending traditional keynote speaking with theatrical elements.
Which I love.
You would love.
Obviously.
We need to get you back up on stage. Because I think that when you look at the world's best speakers, they are performing. It is a performance, and a performance doesn't mean it's not authentic. It doesn't mean it's not them.
No.
It means they're creating this incredible experience for the audience that is unforgettable. So where do you see speaking going? What do you think could help elevate things that you're seeing out there at the moment? And maybe we could even talk about, once we get your 2,500 women getting the stages where they are getting paid the smaller fees to start with to get experience and gain confidence, what would they need to do to then elevate to a whole nother level?
Well, I would say with all of them, they need training. I think that's just a given. So they need stagecraft. They need to know to open their arms. They need to know where to stand on the stage. They need to potentially have a look at their voice if their voice isn't right. Yes. I think I actually feel with AI and all the rest of it that speaking and communities and anything with real people is actually going to have a lot more value. Yes. And I also think that from the point of view of the speaker, obviously it elevates them. Obviously it will increase their own business. because just purely because people will start going, well, they must be the best person, in that industry. So it's a little bit like PR. I always say if you get featured in PR, whether it's true or not, people will think that the media have gone out to find the best person to talk to. So it immediately positions you well.
Yes.
But what do I think of the future of speaking? I think more and more people will learn, I hope. The other thing, but I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, you probably know better than me what is coming with speaking. But I guess I would like to see equality on stages. That's my big thing. I think women should have just as many opportunities as men. I know that there are loads of male allies out there, but there is a lot of unconscious bias and we don't notice it. There are things like, I saw a post on LinkedIn and it was, I won't say who it was, but it was someone promoting that they were doing a huge conference around the future of women in sport. And they had a poster with, let's say, 6 guys and 2 women on it.
Oh, wow.
And I called it out and I just said, that's absolutely terrible. And they said, oh, well, that's not the final lineup. And I said, but really at an event about women in sport, you wouldn't have women up there talking to men to tell them what to do. You'd actually put the men in the audience and say, listen to what the women have got to say.
Yes.
So I'd like to see I'd just like to see a lot more women on stages. I've been talking with a couple of very big conference organizers and they're telling me that they're really struggling to find that the guys put themselves forward, no problem at all. And then another keynote speaker last week was telling me that she had put her fee in at 8.5 and the organizer rang her. She was actually the most experienced speaker, but the organizer rang her and said, all the men have put their fees in at 10 grand. I want you to redo your invoice and send it to me for 10. I'm not paying you less.
They said that to
which
her.
I think was great.
Wonderful.
But I also, for all those people out there, you've got to think big with your fees. I was talking to some women the other day who charged 35 grand to do a 3-hour workshop in the morning. And I was out talking to women in small business land who were going and saying, how much would you charge? And they go, do you reckon they might pay 5? So there's a big disconnect. People need to start understanding the value that they're giving and that they're bringing to the organisation.
I understand where you're speaking as well. I was interviewing a man last week who's a professional speaker from America, and when we got to speaker fees, he said, I know that in Australia and some European countries the speaker fees are a bit lower, but in the US they're pretty good, and it's not that hard to make 5 figures from a speaker fee. Like 10K is kind of the entry level for someone decent, someone that's good over there. And it's nothing to be charging 25K, 35K, up to 100,000.
Yeah, I was going to say 60, 70. Yeah, no problem.
If you're really good. So for those women in Australia, especially who want to go international, don't sell yourself short when you're going to different places like the US. Make sure you up your fees there as well.
Absolutely. In fact, I'd say get yourself an agent or go and do a whole lot of reading and find out what's going on with those fees before you even think about it. I did one. I was keynote for a women's International Women's Day lunch this year. And I won't say what the fee was because you'll be bloody horrified by what I asked for. And then in the middle of the conversation...
In a low way or a high way?
In a very low way.
Okay.
Followed by halfway through the conversation me going, can I change my number? And her saying yes. And then paying me the next day for an event that was 8 months later, which said to me, oh, my God, I left so much money on the table that she's going, let's just pay her now so it's done.
Yes.
So I think that there is definitely a place out there for some education around what fees are reasonable. And this big conference organizer I was talking to said to me, we don't have a big budget for speakers because most of the speakers are happy to offer them, because they're going to be in front of very, very influential people. And I said to her, there's a principle though. Can you just find, I don't care how much it is, it doesn't have to be a lot, but stop not paying people. It's setting a precedent that then is very hard for us to break.
And it's actually rife in the arts in general.
Oh my God, I could imagine. Yeah. We're going to give you an opportunity to get up on stage. And you're going, and probably charging for that. And are you going to give any of that to me?
Yes, exactly. So I think we definitely don't want to set a precedence in the wrong direction when it comes to speaking, because some people will look from afar and think, oh my goodness, they're getting paid that much for 45 minutes on stage. And anyone who actually does speak knows that it's not 45 minutes on stage. It's
oh my God, it's the
hours
previous
and hours
10
and hours.
years.
Yes, all of your experience to start with in your
Yes.
life coming together in your message, and a lot of time in crafting the message.
Yes, absolutely.
And then rehearsing that message to be as impactful as you want to be
Yes.
when you're up there.
I'd love to talk to you about. I'd love to talk to you about two other elements of speaking, though.
Yes.
Just as a matter of interest, and I've completely forgotten the first one, but I wrote the second one down. Thank goodness.
Good.
Which was, how do you feel? Oh, I know. I wanted to talk about MC work and interviewing people on stages. So, because I don't really hear a lot of people talk about this, but the first is MCing is a really good place to start. If you can start, keep a room on track and stick to a timetable, that could be a really good way in.
Yes.
But also, I did a big thing for I probably shouldn't say, for a big insurance company a couple of years ago, and it was all online. It was a 4-day conference that they were running online. And so what they were doing was they were taking the heads of each department and they were talking about what it was that they do in their role and the kind of staff they're looking for. And a couple of the guys who were very senior refused to do it. They just said, I don't want to do a question. I don't want to do a talk. Is there a possibility of being interviewed? And so I interviewed them. But my question to you is that a thing out in speaker land? Because I did a few posts saying I love interviewing people, as you clearly do as well. And I feel like that is a workaround for very accomplished people who you would love to hear their story, but they just have no speaking skills. And I've seen it a lot with women where they run a $25 million or a $200 million company, but put me on a stage and they're so bad you actually wouldn't put them on a stage anyway. So is that becoming more common? Is that a thing that people will interview? I mean, I see it, I went to see Julia Gillard and I think it was Shivani Gopal who was interviewing her. But I'm just interested as to, do you think that that's a trend that will continue? Because I love it and I'd love to do loads more of it. But I don't know.
I think the fact that podcasts are so popular these days shows that there's audiences that are interested in hearing people have conversations with each other.
True.
And diving into amazing content. Like think of, Diary of a CEO, that podcast is so popular, and his podcasts go for 2.5 hours sometimes.
I was listening to one on my way here.
There you go. Very, very big conversations. And so I remember buying tickets to see President Obama speak when he came to Melbourne.
Amazing.
Maybe 2 years ago now, was it? Time flies. And it was advertised that he would speak. So I expect, and then it did talk about an interview, but I expected that he would be doing a keynote, and then they would interview him. But it was just an interview. And
I'm seeing more and more of that because, Julia Gillard was the same. Yes. Why do you think
I
they
was
do
disappointed because I specifically went to see one of the best speakers in the world.
Yes,
I see he's such a powerful speaker, deliver his message and then, be interviewed afterwards. And by the time he got to Melbourne, he'd already been to Sydney and he'd obviously done a few shows. He was tired. Like I could tell he was tired up there on stage. And the one I went to, I didn't think the interviewer was as amazing as he could have been because he turned into a fan to start with on stage. And I don't think that's the best way to be when you're the interviewer. So straight away it was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm interviewing, the president, which is fair. I mean, he's a pretty big person to be interviewing.
I don't mind that if that goes on for a couple of minutes at the beginning.
Yeah, he really positioned himself down in the way, I can't even remember what he said. The way he said it, I just thought, oh goodness, someone needed to have given you that note before you started because you can compliment someone and still be in awe without really positioning yourself down below him.
And I think that's just to go back to people being put into funny roles. Often journalists get asked to do that. Journalists are not used to sitting on a stage and entertaining an audience. They're normally, don't listen if you're a journalist. They're normally quite nerdy and quiet and sitting in a cardigan because they're typing all day. They're writers. They're not presenters. Yes. So often I think there's projections of skills onto people that they wouldn't necessarily have. And I can imagine that they'd go, let's get a journalist. That'll be really good. They'll ask hard-hitting questions. But that's not what journalists do. They don't do it on a stage. They do it in a very quiet room. And
there weren't any hard-hitting questions. Like, he really needed to go deeper with the person on the stage. There was lots of things because I was hyper aware. I was specifically there to analyse how great he was going to be as a speaker, how the room was set up. And interestingly enough, they had a camera at the back of the room, and I thought it was interesting that they weren't recognising the camera at any point. And so there was all sorts of things going on that were interesting from an analytical point of view from my perspective. Especially with this focus of blending theatre and speaking and creating experiences for the audience. I thought the audience experience could have been heightened.
Of course, well, because normally, I mean, Obama is amazing.
He's amazing,
but because he's such an orator, isn't he? I don't know where you go, orator or orator.
Yes,
but he absolutely has the gift of the gab. He is so inspiring. Yes. I don't care what anyone says about him as a president, one way or the other. He is absolutely
as a speaker.
He's up there. He's up there as my ultimate goal. Oh my God! If I could quietly talk like he talks and just have the whole room listening to your every word.
And because he has such a beautiful voice as well from a voice quality point of view. I've had people say I want to speak like Obama. And I've said, well, you're not an African-American man that has that sing-songy voice, so you're not going to sound like him, but let's make you as powerful as you can be.
Exactly.
Being you.
Yes.
All right. Is there anything else you said? So you wanted to cover off on interviews and MC.
So it was just because there are two types of speaking on stages that I'm not hearing a lot about.
Okay.
And I didn't know whether it was kind of a trend maybe going forward or.
I think the interview definitely is popular and is definitely happening
and it's great
experts.
For those speakers that have, that are experts at something but maybe not speaking. Yeah. No, that was all really that I was just wanted to touch on those elements of speaking as well.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, in terms of future and speaking, I think technology will be able to be used in incredible ways. And
quite scarily, I would even say. I would say that you'll be able to record a hologram, in 5 years, and that person can but it'll still be you who's being paid probably to go off, but you might not get the travel allowance. But it's,
yes,
so it's kind of interesting.
It'll be a way to save for event managers to save on travel allowance.
I actually feel like authenticity and speaking authentically and from the heart is going to become more and more powerful because AI will give us everything else. It'll give us all the information and the content that's the non-opinion side of things. It'll give us all that objective kind of stuff. But so we're going to be craving, what do you really mean? Like, tell me what's really going on, that kind of stuff, I think.
And the words and the message are still the powerhouse of the whole talk. Everything else can elevate. I totally believe music and lighting and all these things can elevate the experience. You've got to get the message and that core right first, because otherwise, I call it colouring. You're colouring something that's not right from the start. So you're going to miss the mark with the audience altogether. I've got a client who is female and she is an image specialist and she's speaking on aesthetic intelligence.
Nice.
It's very intellectual the way she's speaking. Yeah, AI. I know. I said to her, it's really a shame that AI is AI because you're going to have to say aesthetic intelligence, not artificial intelligence. But she talks about the fact that we're visual people. So when you walk into the room, everyone else is getting an impression of you, whether you think you're giving an impression or not. So why not architect the impression that you want to give?
Yeah,
which
nice.
I think is so powerful. She went to Paris recently because she does trips once a year over there and does shops because the fashion over there is incredible.
Right.
And she did a talk. So she trialed, we're creating her keynote show. I call them keynote shows that I create with the speakers that want to be on world stages.
You're amazing.
And she just tested in this little tiny room. There would have only been maybe 20 to 30 people there.
Yeah.
She tested the stories that we're going to weave into her big theatrical keynote show. And it was brilliant, the insights that she gained, how the room responded to different things. And we're like, oh, we need to hone in on that. We might cut that one out. We might, tweak this story.
I think that's fantastic. I still remember being put up on a stage in front of I think it was about 250 people. I've never been more terrified in my life because, which is all, there's two stories about that actually. But the first one is that my nerves turned me into a cotton wool mouth, which is fine. And it does for a lot of people. But I was up on a stage, and I just kind of went, hi, everyone, great to all see you. And my mouth started going like this. And I went, I need a glass of water. And they gave me a glass with ice cubes in it. This is my little tip for the day.
Oh, no.
And I had swallowed the ice cubes before I realised it. And then I had to do this whole, I'm so sorry, everyone, as I'm crunching ice cubes. But
I love that story. That's great advice as well. Yes, don't have water with ice cubes in it that you accidentally get in your mouth, or swallow accidentally would be hard as well.
Exactly. So anyway, I forgot what the other one was, but that one always makes me laugh when I think, and if you're asking for water, make sure that they don't put ice cubes in it.
Yes, good tip. I've actually not.
Otherwise, you're going to have to try and be funny for 5 minutes while you're crunching ice cubes on a microphone that's there, thing. So it's so low and noisy. Anyway,
yes,
bit of a laugh.
Oh goodness, we are about to finish our incredible conversation. It's been so amazing speaking to you.
Thanks so much, Carmen.
Is there one last tip or one last thought you would like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
My last tip would be grow your profile, get up on stages, whether you're a man or a woman. It's very important for positioning. They are skills that, really think about even into your home life. They're skills for you to be able to do christening speeches and all that kind of thing. So
100%.
And of course, and then just my own personal bugbear, go and ask some women on your stages. If you're listening to this, and you are a booker of people, then please try and make it that you get more women on stages, because we really need to change that stat. It's pretty appalling.
Yeah, 100%. Wow. Well, thank you so much. That was such an incredible conversation. If anyone out there is listening and does want to book some women for stages and wants to talk to you about it, or they're interested in you in joining the group, what was the group called again? Okay,
so my group is called She's the Boss Group. You can find us at she'sthebossgroup.com, and there's about 6,500 or a bit more than that in a Facebook group. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jules Brooke, and I'm always up for chatting. I do lots of coaching with women around how to grow their profile. So I don't teach you to the depth that Carmen would. So I'd send you to her for the speaking bit. And last but not least, try and create opportunities for women. Be that woman that will mention another woman's name on a room full of opportunities. That's my favourite saying.
Yes,
but
really, I love that.
We know that a lot of speaking is done with word of mouth. We know that people at the moment still go, have you heard of a good speaker? So, if you have and it's female, even better.
Yes, I've spoken for Victoria Police. I've spoken for law firms. I've spoken for... what do we call it? Co-working spaces, and they've all been little gigs in the past that have just come up where someone said, can you come and talk to this group about this? Yeah, sure, no problem.
And you never know who's in the audience and who they're related to. So, you treat all of them as if they're a big professional gig, and lots of other gigs might come out of them.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much, Jules. And
Thanks,
we will talk to you soon, maybe.
Definitely. Thanks.
All right, here's where you're standing. you can close this episode, think that was fun, and go back to doing things the way you've always done them. Or you can decide you're done being the speaker, the leader that people politely applaud and immediately forget. If you want to create the kind of moments we talked about today, the theatrical, the unforgettable, the profitable, I've put together something that'll change how you think about the stage forever. It's called Beyond the Keynote, Creating Your Illuminated Story. No fluff, no theory, just methodology I use with elite speakers and leaders who are done playing small. Go to illuminatedstory.com/masterclass. And hey, if this episode hit you somewhere, share it, leave a review. It takes 30 seconds and helps more people discover that great speaking isn't magic. It's a game and you can learn to win it. I'm Carmen Sederino. Don't just speak, illuminate. See you next week.